Hey.
What? How's it going?
Just dying of the heat over here.
Oh my god, I am like melting. Like
know,
Olaf.
They said it was like 101. The other day it was 120. I just want to die.
In Death Valley. Not here, y'all. Not here.
The feel like temperature here was 120 though.
Oh yeah, that's legit.
And I go by the feel like because that's what I feel like. And I feel like I'm dying. I'm not made for hell. I have realized that now. If there is a hell, if it does exist, I am fucked.
Well, with that kind of attitude, you are.
Anyways, welcome to another week of Case Files.
With Kat.
And Ashley. Yes.
And we're just talking how we're not going to get into hell now, I guess.
Oh, Lord.
we can't even.
I'm just
not
too
heaven,
hot.
not hell.
It's too hot. I'm just gonna...
I know she's over here like fixing her
maybe
shirt.
I'm in hell now. Maybe this is my hell.
Okay, but at least you're drinking something. What you got?
This is the dark cherry apple flavor of Angry Orchard Hardcore. It's an imperial hard cider with dark cherry juice and natural flavors. And you guys, it is so good. It reminds me of like Jolly Ranchers, but not super, super sweet. It's like just a really good balance of like the cherry and apple flavor and like cider. I don't know how to describe it, but it's 8% alcohol. It's really good.
Oh, damn.
It's not too sweet at all. The flavor, it's like every sip is just so good.
It's just so good.
It's a mix.
She is after every sip going, that is so good.
It's like literally a mixture. Like you really taste the dark cherry and the apple. It's really.
Is it apple cider or is it like green apple Jolly Rancher?
It's like a green apple Jolly Rancher.
Wow.
But it's, like I said, it's not that sweet. I was expecting it to be sweeter, but the can art is like phenomenal. It's like an angry tree, but the hardcore has a little apple core in the O for the hole.
That's funny.
It's super fancy. I feel like this is my face all the time.
To me, it's making my little jowls like tighten up with anticipation of the sourness. I don't know.
I'm almost done with it, and we're not even started yet.
I know we haven't. She's just been drinking over there.
Chill.
I am drinking a Brazos Valley Brewing Company Mama Tried, my Citra IPA. Nothing new. Nothing. I didn't go to the store. I do have a nice koozie from Pride, though. Hi, happy Pride. I picked it up off the ground. No, I didn't. I was
Wow.
No, I did.
All right.
That's another one. No, but I was actually in Pride this year, so that was really exciting. With one of our board members, they invited us, and so that was like it was so much fun. The kids love it. They love passing stuff out, and we had cute outfits, y'all. Tutus, the whole thing. Anyway, so
sorry, I feel like there's a wall here.
There is a wall, but that's okay. I can see you. I don't have to see your whole face.
My laptop is up on a thingy, Bob. That's the technical term.
That is. Mm-hmm.
So I can't see Kat, but she can see me.
We're technical here at Case Files.
Very technical here. We have like less than an hour to get this recorded.
Go.
So
Precious
you guys,
minutes.
I really hope I could do this. I'm sure I can.
If you don't, it'll be my fault because I interrupt all the time. So
no,
go.
It's cool. So in the past, and I'll talk about it again, you did a story about different haunted places in Galveston, specifically the Hotel Galvez. And part of that story, you mentioned the orphans that died during the storm of the 1900 with the nuns. So I wanted to do a little bit more on the background of that orphanage and talk about the places that those orphans and the nuns actually are known to haunt, like what is on the land where the orphanage and stuff was now, like where it was.
What's on there now?
Yeah, what's on it now. And just a little bit of background because I thought it was a little fascinating, and then talk a little bit about the 3 people that actually survived the storm and what they said about the nuns. So yeah, that's just kind of my jam. If you haven't heard that episode, I don't even remember what season it's in. I could have looked and I forgot, but it was a really good episode. So, Kat did a great job on talking about all of the crazy, cool ghosts that haunt the Galvez. If you haven't heard of the Hotel Galvez, it's like one of the haunted places in the world, right? One of the most haunted.
Oh, it definitely is. Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of cities say it's the most haunted city, and then they're blah, 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 blah. And there's a lot of like legit claims to that. I mean, I think New Orleans sits on a giant graveyard. I mean, that is 100% a legit claim. Galveston, the tragedy that happened in
gosh,
the
yeah.
1900 storm, that is a legit claim. So, I
Yeah.
mean, it's people who grew up there who I know have said so many, told me so many stories of just
Same.
like growing up on the island, BOI, born on island, that they just had experiences all the time, everywhere.
We could literally do so many episodes on different haunted places around Galveston. Like, there's no shortage.
Because we just tell the same story, like why it's haunted, I mean,
Yeah.
it's different, it's just.
Okay, so on the 8th of September of 1900, most of you probably know that there was a hurricane. It was called Storm of the Century. It claimed over 6,000 lives. It was catastrophic.
That's huge.
It engulfed the entire city. It was, some people say that Hurricane Katrina was worse, but they say that this hurricane was still the worst, just based on the fatality, not so much the damage dollar amount, but on the number of people that died. So again, it was September 8th, 1900. The hurricane killed 6,000 people. By the beachside, like if you're familiar with Galveston, there's a seawall that did not used to be there, but there were 10 nuns that held on to 93 children that were part of the orphanage. They were tied together with clotheslines. They had fastened themselves together. They were trying to keep the children, they were trying to save them, try to get them out. Only 3 of those children did survive. They were, it was just...
Were they tied to a nun?
Originally, and I'll get into how they survived. Mm-hmm. They were all tied together. But this was the deadliest natural disaster in the history of the United States. But the orphanage was no stranger to tragedy, because prior to this 1900 storm, the orphanage had been devastated by a fire in 1875. So the orphanage, I will talk a little bit more about it, but the man that owned the orphanage owned 35 acres in Galveston. And they had a hospital. They had St. Mary's Hospital. And then they had the orphanage.
Okay.
And so the orphanage housed boys and girls. Mm-hmm. And that fire destroyed most of the section for the boys. Now, it did affect some of the girls, but mostly the boys section. But then, of course, the storm wiped the entire orphanage completely out. So, again, striking Galveston on September 8th, 1900, the Great Storm is considered to be the worst natural disaster in the nation's history. More than 6,000 men, women, and children lost their lives. Among the dead were those 10 nuns and the 90 children from the St. Mary's Orphan Asylum, which was operated by the Sisters of Charity. Now, the sisters also operated the St. Mary's Infirmary in Galveston. It was the first Catholic hospital in the state, and it was established in 1867. The sisters were called to Galveston by Catholic Bishop Claude M. Dubois. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. I'm very sorry.
Dubois, maybe.
Sure. In 1866 to care for the many sick that were coming into Texas, because Galveston was a major port of entry for Texas. And so they were also charged for caring for the orphan children. Most of these orphans, their parents had died from yellow fever. There was a really big yellow fever epidemic happening at the time, and most of these kids lost their parents because of that.
Oh, that's so sad.
And so the sisters were sent here to take care of these children. And so at first, the Sisters of Charity opened an orphanage within the hospital. It was like a little building, but later moved it 3 miles to the west on the beachfront, where it became mostly known, on the former estate of a man named Captain Green. So he had given them like the property, and they built an actual orphanage that was outside of the hospital. So this location seemed ideal, as it was far from town and the threat of yellow fever. Like, it wasn't in the middle of town where all the people were. And as Galveston entered the new millennium, it was one of the wealthiest cities per capita in the United States, and one of the largest in the state of Texas. So it was a very big community. It was growing. The port was like bustling. Like, it had 36,000 people. It was set to be like one of the greatest cities. So they thought this was a really good place to have this hospital and this orphanage and to take care of these children.
Wow.
And then so the one weekend in September, the same proximity to the sea that had made the community grow and prosper as a port city was about to change Galveston Island forever. So on September 8th, the hurricane came through. It wiped out full blocks of homes. They were just completely swept away. 1/6 of the population was killed. Beginning in the early morning of the 8th, the winds began coming in very strong from the north, and despite the opposing winds, the tides in the southern Gulf waters also rose, sending very large waves crashing onto the beachfront. Now, we currently have a seawall. If you're familiar with Galveston at all, you know it blocks most of the waves. Like, it's very rare that the water comes over unless there is a storm of some kind.
So this is before the seawall, though?
Yes.
Oh.
The seawall was built in response to the storm, is my understanding. But at the time, it was just beachfront. So there was nothing to block them, nothing to protect them from these waves that were coming in. So Sister Elizabeth Ryan, she was one of the 10 sisters at St. Mary's Orphanage. She had come into town that morning to collect food. And despite pleas from Mother Gabriel, the assistant superior at St. Mary's Infirmary, for her to stay at the hospital until the storm passed, Sister Elizabeth said she had to return to the orphanage. Sister Elizabeth said that she had the provisions in the wagon, and if she did not return to the children, they would have no supper. She didn't know that whether she returned or not, unfortunately, there would be no more. This was her last venture away from the orphanage. So during the afternoon, the winds and the rain just increased. The tide started to rise higher and higher. The waves started to just get more fierce. They were crashing down. They were sending floodwaters into the residential areas. It was just bad. St. Mary's Orphanage was a 2-story building. It had the dormitories, and it was literally just off the beach. It was like behind a row of like sand dunes and was supported by some salt cedar trees. The buildings, all of the balconies faced the water. I mean, it was like right there. There was no chance that it was going to withstand the storm, unfortunately.
This cat. I'm sorry. He's licking me and everything. He's just like, pay attention. Okay, sorry.
No, it's okay. So according to one of the boys at the orphanage that did survive, the rising tides began eroding the sand dunes as though they were made of flour.
Oh my gosh.
Soon the waters of the Gulf reached the dormitories. The sisters at the orphanage brought all of the children into the girls' dormitory because it was the newer and stronger of the two. They thought that this was going to be their best chance of survival. And in the first floor of the chapel, they began to try and calm the children, and they began singing to them the song Queen of the Waves. Now, that is a song that I will talk a little bit more about later, but that was their efforts to calm them. But the water just wouldn't stop. It continued to come in. There was nowhere for them to go. There wasn't, like today, there's all kinds of ways to evacuate. You know, they prepare you. They have people that will get you off the island. There was nothing like that at the time. They didn't know what to do. They couldn't prepare. They didn't know what was coming. They didn't have any kind of
it's so different now.
Help. You know, I mean, everyone was kind of in the same position, so there wasn't much that they could do. Again, this is 1900.
Right.
So
this reminds me of that scene in Titanic where the ship is going down, but the musicians are still playing to the bitter end.
Exactly.
And those sisters,
I'm going to say these nuns were amazing because their whole focus the whole time was trying to save these children, trying to keep them alive, trying to keep them calm. And they did everything. They thought they were doing everything they possibly could do to keep them alive.
I was not like them when Harvey hit and the water was coming up to our door, and I'm just like, move out of the way.
I hope you can swim. Goodbye.
No, I was just,
I will have another child.
You could just see the stress. And I mean, I was like Herculean strength picking up furniture to take it up off the ground and onto tables and whatever. But I was just like, the amount of stress, I was not calm. I had a lot of anxiety, and these women, wow.
They really tried to stay calm for the children. So taking the children to the second story of the dormitory. And also, I want to mention, I don't know how familiar they would have been with hurricanes. Like, that may have been a very new experience for them. I can't imagine not knowing what a hurricane was, and then this like a hurricane happening to this like, I don't know what I would probably freak out. But anyway, so taking the children to the second story, the sisters had Henry Esquire, which was a worker, collect clothesline rope. Again, they had the boys and girls sing Queen of the Waves. And one of the boys later said the children were very frightened, but the sisters were very, very brave. He routinely, when he was questioned after he was rescued, he always wanted to point out that the sisters were very brave for the children. Yeah.
God.
So by 6 p.m., the wind was gusting past 100 miles per hour, and the waters and the bay between the Gulf and the bay had met, completely flooding the city. Residents had climbed to the second stories, to attics and roofs of their homes. Flying debris struck many who were outside, which a lot of people died from the flying debris.
Because things weren't made of wood.
Yeah. I mean, they just weren't built like they are today. People just didn't know how to prepare. Today, it's much different.
I will say, because you asked, you weren't sure how much they knew between 1890 and 1899. There was a storm that hit Galveston that made landfall in 91 at the tip of Texas in 1895, 1891, 1895. Another one that hit Texas in 1897. The sixth storm of 1898 hit Texas and Louisiana. And then in 1899.
Were they like bad? You know what I mean? Like, were they like hurricanes? Or were they like tropical storms? Or
in 1835, 14 people died. 1837, 2 people died.
Well, they weren't there until 1875.
So then
they wouldn't have seen the two 1830s. They would not have seen,
but they did have there were very bad storms.
Yeah.
So
I don't know what kind of warning systems they had back then. You know, like now there are so much warning.
It probably took a long time to get.
So around 7:30, the main tidal surge struck the South Shore. Houses along the beachfront were lifted up from their foundations and sent like battering rams into other houses. Houses fell upon houses, and at St. Mary's Infirmary, the floodwaters filled the first floor. From the second-story balcony, the sisters pulled refugees in that floated by and brought them into the overcrowded hospital.
Oh my gosh!
Almost every window in the facility was broken. They were broken out and sending the wind and rain into the building. But those sisters at the infirmary were also trying to save people. Like, you had the ones at the orphanage trying to save these children, and then you had the ones at the hospital really working to save those people. So at the orphanage, the children and sisters heard the crash of the boys' dormitory as it collapsed. It was carried away. It completely collapsed. It was washed away in the water. The sisters,
I'm acting like I don't know the story, but like you're telling it. You know, it's like
the stories cut the clothesline rope into sections and used it to tie the children to the cinctures which they wore around their waist. Each sister tied to herself between 6 to 8 children. It was a valiant yet sacrificial effort to save the children. Some of the older children climbed onto the roof of the orphanage, but eventually the dormitory building that had been the sanctuary for them was lifted from its foundation. So the bottom fell completely out and the roof crashed down, trapping those inside. So anyone that was left inside died. The nuns that had the children tied to them all drowned. There were literally bodies everywhere. Whenever the storm cleared, they said there were just bodies everywhere, mangled animals everywhere, property everywhere. It was a horrific sight. For those that don't know, they tried to send the bodies off into the water because there were so many of them, but that didn't work. So the bodies would wash back on shore and would be bloated. And so they would have to dry them out. And then they just burned all of them. They tried to burn them, but the ashes from burning all the bodies was too much. So they buried them, the nuns and the orphans that they could gather, they did bury them on a plot of land that was part of that 35 acres that was owned. So, one of the boys, so there were 3 boys from the orphanage that survived. William Murney, Frank Madeira, and Albert Campbell. All three ended up together in a tree in the water. After floating for more than a day, they were eventually able to make their way into town where they told the sisters what happened at the orphanage. So they were basically clinging to a tree. They woke up clinging. So they don't remember how they got to the tree, but one of the boys remembered a sister tightly holding two small children in her arms, promising not to let go. The sister was buried where, like I said, the sisters were buried where they were found, and the children still attached to them. So two of the sisters were found together across the bay on the mainland, and one of them was tightly holding two children in her arms. And so they just, like, even in death, like, these sisters kept their promise. They were trying to protect these children. And there's actually a memorial for them on the seawall, like, kind of where it happened, which, again, if you're familiar with Galveston, it's where the Walmart is now. Across from Walmart, there is a memorial to them. There's several memorials to them.
We should go take a picture of it.
Yeah. But the death and destruction, again, was unbelievable. More than 6,000 people were dead, and their bodies littered the city. So as you can imagine, 6,000 people dying in this horrific way would lead to a city just being completely haunted. Everywhere you go, like, every building in Galveston's haunted. Every place is haunted. It's just unavoidable. It would be months before some would be uncovered, and a complete list of the dead was never made because there was just so many. And so it is estimated that the winds reached 150 miles per hour, even up to maybe 200. The tidal surge was estimated to be from 15 to 20 feet. Whole blocks of homes have been completely destroyed, leaving more than a brick or two. In all, more than 3,600 homes were destroyed. So there was a great wall of debris wrapped itself around St. Mary's Infirmary on the eastern end of the city and then zigzagged through the city to the beach. At places, the wall was two stories tall. Inside this great wall were destroyed houses, pieces of furniture, cats, dogs, and people, those who were dead and those who were dying. So at St. Mary's Infirmary, there was no food and no water. The main building was still standing, but the adjacent structures had been destroyed. So the hospital was packed with those who were injured that had nowhere else to go.
So I looked at the picture of the place.
Of the infirmary or the orphanage?
It was the orphanage. So it spans it's wide, I guess. It's not tall, it's wide.
Yeah, it was a 2-story.
So was the infirmary?
The infirmary was further in town.
Okay.
It was on a totally separate. Originally, when the orphanage started, it was part of the infirmary, which was in town.
I see. And so
and then they moved the orphanage.
So the large one. Yeah. Okay.
So the hospital was packed with those who were injured, nowhere else to go.
But still the same sisters. I'm sorry, the sisters.
Yeah, the same set of sisters that. It was all the Sisters of Charity.
Okay.
They were all one, like, organization. So two of the sisters walked about the area until they could find crackers and cookies that had been soaked in water. They brought them back to the hospital. And over a fire they built in the street, they dried food. So they were trying to help these people. And a year later, they opened a new orphanage, but that was further inland. So there was a new orphanage opened. And so... in today's time, wherever the Sisters of Charity are on September 8th, every year, the members stop and they sing the hymn Queen of the Waves to pause and remember all of those that lost their hands all around the world. It doesn't matter where the Sisters of Charity are because they're in other countries. They're in a lot of European countries. There's still a lot here. They all stop to pause and sing that song. So all of that is to say, obviously, Galveston is extremely haunted. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the places that are still being haunted by the nuns and the orphans specifically. So if you know where Galveston is, you know where the seawall is, there's no shortage of businesses. The Walmart that is located in Galveston is built on the land where the Orphan Asylum stood. So the actual orphanage land is where Walmart is. And employees? Yes, ma'am.
Well, it just seemed like such a big expanse of land. So is it the Walmart and the other things, or? No.
The Walmart takes up the full,
Oh,
like the parking
whole,
lot,
everything.
everything like right there where
Okay.
that Walmart is, was all the orphanage.
I believe you.
So, employees of Walmart, even to this day, report lost toys, misplaced pallets. They say toys are often knocked off the shelves,
interesting.
like right in front of them. Like the kids will run by and knock the toys off. Sometimes they
They're trying to play.
Sometimes they overhear the disembodied laughter of children. No, thank you. A former employee told a story about how she once heard a child crying and crying for their mother. So she went to find the child thinking that they were lost and needed help to find their mother.
I remember that.
She searched the toy department. She called out the child without an answer, and even had other employees and customers trying to assist in finding the lost child. They never did find the child, never saw a crying child for that matter, and suddenly the crying would just stop. It was always sounding like the child was just on the next aisle over, and two employees argued back and forth saying, "Don't you see her she's on your side," with the other one saying, "No, she's on your side. I can hear her." But she wasn't the isolated one. Like other employees would hear children crying out for their parents all of the time, like looking for their parents, like just trying to search.
Well, I mean, I think even they were orphans. So what, even now, I think as an adult, you would be screaming for your mama.
Yeah.
Like my mom isn't alive. Like, I think if I was in fear, I think I'd be screaming for my mama too. And so they're children. And so it's like, it's almost like residual.
Yeah.
Seems really sad.
And then so others have reported seeing nuns roam the aisles, like ghost figures of the nuns. Children running around and playing through the stores after hours, like when they're closed and restocking, they hear children playing.
Do you think the nuns are residual, or do you think they're like there?
They gotta be residual.
Like shopping at Walmart.
I'm sure they're watching the children that are playing. Maybe they're trying to watch the ghost children. They're still, even though they're dead, they still have that role of, well, I'm here, I've got to protect. Maybe, I'm just assuming. Because none of them really speak, right? Like it's not like some of the other ghost stories where they talk or do crazy things. They literally just roam up and down the aisles.
Do you think that if it's residual, they're at peace, or do you think that they're still here, and do they need to be helped over?
I don't know. It's sad to think about.
I know. Like I'd hate for them to be stuck.
Yeah. But I am glad that the children ghosts have nun ghosts to take care of them.
Sure.
The Walmart is actually considered to be one of the most haunted places on the entire island. The employees constantly hear stuff. It's just common to them now. Like it just happens. They hear the children playing, they see them playing, toys come up missing, they just know it's them. And when I say toys missing, I don't mean like someone stole them.
Okay, I was like, well, maybe
they'll
that.
put something on the shelf, like after hours, they'll be stocking and stuff, and then it will be somewhere else. Like the toys are moved, pallets are moved, things are moved around.
Wow.
A lot. And then they hear like the children laughing, right? They hear the disembodied laughing. So they know that the children are
Don't be
playing.
creepy, kids. Don't be creepy.
Okay, so as we talked about the Hotel Galvez is built on top of the mass grave of the orphans and the nuns. So one of the employees at the Galvez was dusting once and was interrupted by erratic flushing of toilets and invisible children laughing. So like they would flush the toilet and then giggle. And it would just happen. They would just do it over and over and over. And she claimed that she would have to yell, "Hey, I'm in here," to get them to stop. The Galveston Ghost Hunters, which is a ghost hunting group in Galveston, obviously, they stayed on the 5th floor, which is said to be the most haunted floor of the Galvez, while it was being renovated. And they witnessed all of the room doors slam against their safety catches for a few minutes before capturing what they say was the image of a nun walking down the hallway.
Wow.
Yeah. There have been other guests that have said their doors open and close, lights turning on and off by themselves. They hear the children's laughter. Several witnesses have seen glimpses of the orphans playing by themselves in rooms that are not occupied. Many have reported seeing a figure dressed in an old-fashioned nun's habit walking along the shore, and historians believe that that was Sister Catherine. She was one of the nuns from the orphanage that was one of the ones that was tied to the children.
This is like, I always think, like, I'm putting myself in the role of somebody who has purchased a room to go stay at this hotel. And then I'm like, oh, that scared me. Yeah, it probably would scare me. I don't know if I would be able to stay there. But then I'm like, but how, like, what would have to happen for Jason to believe it?
Well, Sloan says apparently if you're going up the elevator and on the floors where the water was like raised up, if you knock on the elevator, like the back of the elevator, they knock back. She was actually gonna send us some videos of like her father staying there where the lights are flickering on and off by themselves. She said that they were there over the weekend and they had stuff.
Tremont.
Yeah, and well, they had stuff plugged in. Well, I don't know.
Yeah, they were at the Tremont.
Well, she says they go to the Galvez all the time.
Yeah, she was at the Tremont when this happened.
All haunted.
But this is also on an island.
But the Galvez has a lot. I mean, a lot. Like the lady you talked about that killed herself because she thought her husband wasn't coming back from war. He got back and found out she killed herself because he was just late. So he killed himself. I mean, the orphans, the nuns, anyone that died in it.
That's the room that people want to stay in. Is that room?
That special room. Yeah, they call it the special room. But the 5th floor is the most haunted. A lot of the employees say they have seen a little girl from the time period of the orphanage that is in the hotel lobby, and she just sits there and bounces a ball, just plays with herself, doesn't bother anyone. That is the overall kind of theme, is that none of the children or nuns do anything negative, right? They're all just kind of minding their business, except for the ones that are playing the harmless pranks, like flushing the toilet and giggling or moving the toys and stuff like that. They just want to play. They're children.
I think, though, that what scares people about the children is that we're so used to, like, when you talk about like demonic, not possessions, like just demonic entities, that they will impersonate children, and it will always usually be a little girl. Yeah. And so there's like, it's just scary. Like the scary movies, it's always like a little kid being demonic.
Well, according to everyone that's ever left a review or captured any of them, have always said they've been a very positive experience. It's never been negative. The children literally just laugh and play, which makes me a little bit happier because at least they're not super miserable.
100%.
Maybe like, I don't know, maybe in their ghost world they have parents. I don't know. So again, I mentioned there were 3 survivors. One of them was named William, and he lived to be 84 years old. He lived a full life.
Wow.
He died in 1971, so really not that long ago. And he told his story a lot. Like, he would recall the events, and I couldn't really find information on the other 2 boys, like what happened to them, but their descendants came to the memorial ceremony for the plaque. So their descendants came to Galveston for that. And there's an author that wrote a book, and thought I had his name, but basically he wrote the book. It's called A Morning Wave. And it is a book about the events, told from the point of view. So it's called The Morning Wave, a novel of the Great Storm, and it's by Gregory Funderburk. But he tells it from the point of view of the surviving children, like the 3 boys.
Funderburk.
Yeah.
It's a great name.
But he is a natural Houstonian. But basically what he did was he took all of the, so it recounts the moment the deadly storm hit. It talks about the real life characters, the historic figures. It has powerful recollections from the storm survivors. It talks about the present and the history. It's guidance for processing grief, anxiety after the aftermath. But he uses a lot of the actual letters that were written about the event back then, a lot of the records, photographs. Again, he interviewed the 3 survivors, but he also talked to other survivors, not just of the orphanage. But this is the only book that has been written about the pointed or, whatever else. Like it really tells their kind of what it was like from their point of view.
I like this little, the little blurb. It says, before moving, Will announced his intentions. We feel obliged to insist you take us to St. Mary's Hospital and Infirmary in the city proper. We aim to tell Mother Gabriel we're alive. No one responded. We're from the orphanage, he added, conferring further heft to his position. Expect they know what happened, the soldier carrying Albert said. They don't know the part about us, Will said, standing solid on the beach.
And so Will is the one that survived to be 84. Now, Albert, I couldn't find anything about him, but he was the only survivor who didn't have descendants that came to the memorial. Will and the other boy that survived, they both had descendants who came too. So I'm not sure what happened to Albert. I imagine it was such a traumatic event. Like, I don't know how you would go on about your life. But I do know that Will moved. He'd left Texas and died somewhere else. Like, he lived his whole life somewhere else. He was a foreman at a job, like, lived a full life, but just got the hell out of Texas, which I cannot blame him for that at all.
I'm trying to do that, but
But I read...
It's just hot, y'all.
I know, it is really hot. I'm, like, sweating my ass off.
Sorry.
No, it's not you. It's just life. But I did read a good portion of the book. It is really, really interesting. So if you're interested in the storm, if you're interested in the boys that survived, the nuns, that's a great book. If you just want to know about the haunting, the paranormal activity, literally no shortage of the Ghost of Galveston. The Hotel Galvez is a really good place to visit. Obviously, the Walmart in Galveston is a really good place to visit, but you can't go wrong. Everything is haunted in Galveston.
You just feel that when you go there too.
Yeah, it is like a weird energy sometimes, for sure.
Like, depending on where you go, sometimes you walk into a place and you're just like, ooh, you just kind of have that. It's like a buzz or something.
And when I stayed in Galveston when my house was being done, I don't even think I went into Walmart. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, damn. I didn't realize that Walmart was where the orphanage was at the time. I thought it was just the hotel. Mm-hmm. But I'm like, man, I kind of wish I had gone in. I mean, I guess I still can. It's not like it's like super crazy far, but yeah, I never went in when I lived there. But
like, that's effort.
So the point of the story is it's a very tragic thing, but the children are still there. The nuns are still there. They still watch over people. They still roam the beach, the hallways, the hotel, Walmart. They seem to be in good spirits, literally. But
there's also not those people, and there's like 6,000 people lost their lives. There's a lot of people.
I mean, in the Hotel Galvez alone, there's a lot.
Oh my gosh.
So anyways, I know it was a very short story, but I really just wanted to tell the history, because a lot of times all you hear is the 90 children and the 10 nuns died, but you didn't know anything about them, where they came from, that there were even survivors. I didn't know there were any survivors from the orphanage, or that they haunt the hotel. I knew that they haunted the hotel, but I didn't know that they haunted the beach and the Walmart and other areas of Galveston. So
crazy.
Just wanted to share that with people.
Well, all right. Well, you guys, if you have story ideas, if you want to get in touch with us, if you want to, if you survived some crazy ass storm like the 1900 storm, and you are immortal and you're still alive at this point, you want us to interview you.
Could be any storm.
No. We've all survived a lot of storms.
Yes.
We have survived a lot of storms. But just get in touch with us. You can follow us we're on Facebook and Instagram. Please email us, go onto our website, get our email address.
We're on all the streaming platforms.
We're just on all the things. So review us, like us, share us.
Please, honestly, we love if you share ideas with us. Like, if you've read a cool story, or like I see cool stories on TikTok all the time and I screenshot them and save them to do later. Just if you have a cool story that you would think other people would like hearing, please send it to us. We love it.
Yeah.
Or if you want to be a host,
Like
we
an
love hosts.
underreported interesting story.
Yeah,
I'm all about
for
it.
sure.
Next week, I am hoping that I'm ready to do this cult that I've been researching. Yeah. So
I'm trying to break away from disappearances.
Okay,
I've done like
I don't know
35 in a row.
I don't know why she's doing that, but people
Anyways.
know what to expect. Don't go changing now. We're in season 6.
I'm changing it all. Changing the whole format of this podcast.
All of a sudden, she's like, "This is the dress of 2024." I can tell you that right now. This is the color.
Did you see that guy killed his wife or tried to kill his wife? The one that started that whole viral picture with that black and gold dress or whatever?
What happened?
The man that originally posted the picture
that
of the
goddamn dress. Yeah.
Yeah, the one that originally posted that question. I think he killed his wife, or he was arrested for attempting to kill her. Like, it happened very recently.
Well, don't do that, y'all. Don't kill people. Don't get killed. That's just the thing.
So he was charged with trying to kill his wife. Yeah, so he didn't actually kill her, but he tried to kill her. He allegedly committed an 11-year campaign of domestic violence against her, and like controlled her heavily. So it's crazy that he was what started that viral meme. It happened recently. He's from Scotland.
I hope that she's gotten away from him and
he's in jail now.
Oh, good. Well, I hope that she's getting the help that she needs, because that's a long road of recovery. But she is.
Sorry, you brought it up, so I just thought it was a good segue and to mention that happened 4 days ago for people who didn't know. He was arrested.
Did I bring up the dress? I did? Oh, a dress.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that's what, when people say that dress, I just assume that's the one they're referring to. My bad.
I was thinking of Legally Blonde.
Oh, JK guys, now you know that the guy that created that viral trend is in jail because he tried to kill his wife.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. Oh my God, we're so digressing right now, but this is why you love us. Anyway, we love you. Thank you for listening. Please reach out to us if you need us. We are here with resources. Speaking of domestic violence, so we are here with resources. But review, like us, share us, please. And love you. We'll see you next week.
Bye.